Do I really know where I'm gifted? Do I pray? Do I, thank God for those gifts that I have? Do I ask Him for guidance on who those gifts are for and when and how I'm supposed to give them? What's the one good excuse that I have that prevents me from either listening to God or really sharing that gift with other people? What would be the one thing I could commit to do just in the next week to be my own personal version of the Good Samaritan, to give generously to somebody in some form? We tend to see things through our own eyes. And, as Maxwell set the stage, he said, what you see is who you will be. Even when you walked in the room today, who did you see? Who didn't you see? And why? And do you recognize that aspect of yourself, that two people can see things so differently, but what you see is who you'll be? And then as John described it, when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. He just says, what I believe about life determines how I perceive my life, which determines what I receive from life. He talked about the robbers in our life, and he described those as people that think what is yours is mine. And we all kind of know some of those people, right? And we might call them takers, but we can all look at different people, sometimes even family members, and say, as much as I love that person, they're kind of a taker. When you look around, there's a lot of people have been successful, and it's like, well, I've had success and this is mine and I'm going to keep it. And, even though they've benefited from a lot of different things in their lives, they're not necessarily the first ones to give back. And, when you think in general, you're like, well, okay, a lot of people fit into that category. And where John's trying to lead us is he's saying, but what God really wants is He wants the things that He passes to you to multiply and to be given back. Do you have a scarcity mindset? Do you have a victim mindset? Or is it a generous and abundance mindset that you really, really see? And I do think, if you think about the Good Samaritan, don't you think he had an abundance mindset? Obviously life had been somewhat good to him. He was in a position to help somebody in need, but in all likelihood, other people that are in his life might have said he was a really, really kind and generous person. How would you feel if you ordered something on Amazon and it was a special gift for somebody you really, really loved, and the delivery guy took the gift and kept it? What happens when God gives us gifts and we just hold on to them? And that was the comparative that he gave us, was if you went to the Amazon guy and said, this is a really important package, it needs to get to my friend, it's a special gift for him, and he took the gift and just sat on it, you would be incredibly disappointed. And that was John's way of beginning to get us to see how God thinks about us. Don't let your ego get confused. Those things came from God. It's not you, those are gifts from God. And so this is why we come back to, do you see those gifts from God? Do you give gratitude back to God? The point that Maxwell's trying to make is God's just asking for it back. He's just asking for it back. And He's asking us to be open to giving it back. Maxwell said when he goes out and speaks at leadership conferences, people will say to him, where do you get this stuff? And he said, you won't believe me if I tell you. And he said they'll press him. And he'll just say, you won't believe me. And then finally he looks at me and goes, all of this stuff that I teach comes out of the Bible. It's not new stuff. It's just repackaged. I'm just going to ask you to ask the question, where am I gifted? Do I pray regularly and thank God for these incredible blessings and giftedness in my life? And just ask that question, do you have a lame excuse that gets in the way of you really giving back what God has asked you to deliver? Are you the Amazon guy that kept the gift? Or are you the guy that really delivered it? And then what's the one thing you could do this week to honor God and to be a good Samaritan?